There is something wrong with Dricus Du Plessis in this UFC 319 fight week. I have never seen him act the way he's acting. I've never seen the lack of confidence radiate through him more. Usually when we are watching DDP, listening to DDP throughout an entire fight week, we are not seeing confidence more throughout any other fighter than DDP. But it is completely different in this fight week. Khamzat Chimaev, I don't know what it is about Khamzat Chimaev. Well, I do know. We're actually going to go over exactly what's going on and what started this whole thing. We're going to start through the entire beginning of the fight. We can go through this. But there's something going through DDP that is making him nervous, that is making him terrified. Maybe not necessarily terrified, but the nervous energy is wildly showing in DDP. And honestly, I think he's wildly shook. I think DDP is shook more than he's ever been shook. I've never seen DDP physically shook in his wording, in his verbiage, in his physical nature, and it's insane how tense Chimaev has made DDP, how tense this fight week has made him. Let's go through what's been going on. And obviously, we started off seeing this video of Khamzat Chimaev looking way bigger than DDP, and DDP immediately started stuttering when Chimaev came up to him. Chimaev smiling ear to ear, staring right at DDP, staring through his soul, basically, is what we're looking at. But the difference is that obviously there are angles to this, right? And I was susceptible to it as well. I said Chimaev looked way bigger than him, but I understand the angles. Chimaev is closer to the screen. However, we ended up getting another angle at this, and although DDP doesn't look as much smaller, he looks a little bit taller at this angle, with DDP's favorable angle here, right? He looks maybe a little bit taller, but if you kind of look at it, I still think Chimaev looks a little bit bigger. I still think Chimaev looks relatively, at the bare minimum, comparable in size to DDP, right? But every single bit of these conversations, from this photo right here that we saw, obviously, from the original camera angle, to this one on the Embedded series, or UFC, I think it's Embedded Episode 3, that Dricus Du Plessis was stuttering when he was talking to Khamzat Chimaev. He looked a little bit nervous when he was talking to Chimaev, looked a little bit disheveled. Chimaev, I mean, you could see literally not an ounce of worry in his face. I mean, come on, look at this guy. Think about it. This is Bald Chimaev we're talking about. This is mythical fighter Khamzat Chimaev we're talking about. When have you seen Bald Chimaev not be an absolute menace every single time he's in the cage? And now, obviously, when has Khamzat Chimaev ever disheveled? Like, literally ever. DDP, though, you could say the same thing about him until this fight week. I've never seen DDP look as disheveled, as nervous, and as worried about what's about to happen, about the fight, about the person he's fighting. But against Khamzat Chimaev right now, with all these talks about this size thing, obviously we saw the angles, and DDP himself kind of entertained it. But it's a little bit weird because DDP in his media day, in these interviews that he's been having, he seems to be the one to bring it up. He seems to be the person that keeps mentioning this size difference and kind of trying to joke about it and keep bringing it up and keep mentioning it. And I'm kind of starting to notice that when something bothers DDP, he's going to constantly bring it up. It seems like when DDP constantly gets something that bothers him, he's going to bring it up repeatedly. And I'm going to go back to that, and I'm going to backtrack to that in another thing that I'm going to talk about in a moment from the press conference that just occurred. But DDP in his media day brought up the Khamzat's 8 feet tall, whatever it is. DDP in other interviews brought up the whole size conversation and all that stuff. I've never seen DDP focus on something so trivial. Like, it's so weird that DDP's listening to all of this as much as he is right now on fight week, when considering we haven't really seen anything anywhere similar to that in any other fight week, especially those fight weeks that there's a lot of trash talk from other people, right? From people that are against him, the people that he's fighting, Sean Strickland twice, Israel Adesanya. There's a lot going on with that one. But it seems like he's so fixated on this size conversation for whatever reason that he keeps bringing it up in media day. He brought it up in media day, brought it up in his interviews. It seems like it's somewhat bothered DDP a little bit. And maybe not necessarily bothered him on the basis of people saying that he's smaller, that Khamzat mogged him or whatever it is. Maybe he is a little bit bothered by that. But also just seeing him stutter the moment Chimaev walks towards him. Seeing him kind of get a little bit nervous. You never really see that in DDP. You see confidence in DDP. You see him much more emphatic. You see him a lot more. He's the guy in that room, basically. And this is maybe the first time I've seen him in front of somebody where he himself did not feel like he was the guy. And we all saw when we were looking at him facing Chimaev, listening to that interaction, he was not the guy in that room. It was Khamzat Chimaev. And again, that's honestly very unaware territory for DDP in a while. Against Robert Whittaker, of course, was probably the last time he was disrespected going into a fight. Like, at least substantially. And even then, he seemed pretty cool, pretty calm, collected. Any single time he was doubted in his career to a severe extent, obviously, before DDP became champion and before anybody thought he was actually a legitimate title contender, people were disrespecting him like crazy. We never saw him act like this. We never saw him anywhere near this level. We saw him as confident as ever. I did not see that. In this press conference, in these media days, the way he's bringing this stuff up, I did not see it in the interaction with Khamzat Chimaev. And then we get to the press conference. we get DDP getting immediately booed, and I've never heard. I mean, it's been a while at the bare minimum that anybody's been booed to this level. And DDP is in Chicago, by the way. This is not Khamzat Chimaev fighting in the Emirates. This is not Khamzat Chimaev fighting in Saudi, in Qatar, wherever it is. This is Khamzat Chimaev fighting in Chicago. Khamzat Chimaev is being treated as if he's from Chicago, as if he's born and bred from Chicago. The crowd is roaring for Chimaev, and on the complete flip side, they are booing DDP into the ground. The first question of the day, the boos were radiating. DDP stopped answering his question, and the boos shut him up to the extent he forgot that there was a question being asked. Dana White reminded DDP, "Did you answer your question?" He's like, "Oh, I don't think I did," and then he goes back to it. It's insane how disheveled they look with these boos. And now you could say DDP's been booed before. Obviously, he's been a guy who's been booed, and a lot of people have sided against him. But I don't think too many people were siding with Israel Adesanya nearly as much as they are Chimaev. Not even close. I don't think anybody was siding with Sean Strickland nearly as much. I think it's been a while since DDP's been on the back end of these boos. But even against Robert Whittaker, I don't think he was booed to this extent. DDP was literally disheveled with these boos. He didn't like it. And based on what was happening with Chimaev prior end, he kept mentioning those. And then for the rest of this press conference, it just seemed like DDP was so fixated on everything that did not matter. And he kept fixating on these boos. He kept trying to talk about the crowd and the boos and stuff like that. He was basically trying to taunt the crowd the entire time about them not booing enough. And he kept trying to rally up the boos. Again, back to what I mentioned earlier. Dricus Du Plessis, it seems like when something is bothering him, when something is getting under his skin, he just tries to bring it up in a joking manner, but he doesn't bring it up once. He brings it up repeatedly. When the whole size thing happened with Chimaev, as I mentioned prior, he kept mentioning in his media days, in his interviews. And then all of a sudden, Dricus Du Plessis here, the boos, was really, really shocked by them. He really did not expect the boos to be that loud, to interrupt him that much. And he was shocked. You could tell with the first question. He didn't really entertain the crowd like that. He wasn't really playing into it. And then he started playing into it a little bit more because he started getting bothered by it. He was actually shocked and he didn't know how to deal with it. So he started trying to joke about it. He started trying to talk about the crowd booing and trying to rile them up. It seems like when something bothers DDP, he constantly brings it up and tries to play it down in a joking manner. I think the booing was getting to him. I think the support for Chimaev was getting to him. I think everything about Chimaev that is coming up in front of DDP in a positive light for Chimaev and a negative light for him, and honestly, with Chimaev facing him, Chimaev looking as demeaning as he looks, and DDP kind of seeming nervous in front of Chimaev, yeah, I've never seen DDP like this. I've never seen DDP so tense. I've never seen DDP so out of it when it comes to focusing on this fight and focusing on the important details, and he's very much highlighting himself, the very irrelevant things like this size conversation that was pretty much angles as we saw that and we're going to talk about another piece of this and also the boos. But let me get to the face off. First things first, Dricus Du Plessis is all of a sudden taller than Chimaev. Does anybody not find it a little bit weird that Dricus Du Plessis went from facing Chimaev, kind of looking up towards him, like when you look at these two camera angles that we saw, the first one and the original one, if we go back to them, DDP's kind of looking up at Chimaev when he's trying to look him up and down right now, but he really couldn't keep eye contact. That's another conversation, but he was looking up at Chimaev. And even at this, you can see at this angle, seemingly still looking up at Chimaev. Chimaev, even if you avoid the angle being from a downward position, you could still see Chimaev's direction with his eyes is kind of down, DDP is a little bit more up. And over here, all of a sudden, DDP is looking directly in his eyes. So does anybody find it weird that DDP went from talking about Chimaev and the size and constantly bringing up in media day, constantly bringing it up in interviews, and honestly, before anybody even asks him about these interactions and how the size looked, he's the one bringing it up first. Does anybody find it a little bit weird that he's all of a sudden the exact same height or maybe even a little bit taller than Chimaev, who's listed as 2 inches taller than him? Nobody? Because I feel like DDP's kind of played into it, and I think DDP was wearing kind of some sort of elevated shoes, or Chimaev's probably wearing like some sort of running shoes. Wish we could see it down here, but all these fans and the cameras and stuff like that got in the way. I think DDP was wearing something to kind of make himself not feel as small. And I also think DDP doesn't really feel good with what's going on with Chimaev. I don't think he feels good about Chimaev. I don't think he feels good about this matchup. I think he feels the pressure. I think he's terrified. I don't think he's confident in being able to deal with Chimaev on the ground. I don't think he's confident at all with dealing with these takedowns, as he keeps saying that he knows he's going to get taken down. And he verbally said out loud in this press conference, I'm going to try to stop every single takedown, but I'm going to get back up if I get taken down. submitting to the takedown. I understand not deluding yourself to saying that, oh, I'm not going to get taken down. But where's the confidence in Dricus Du Plessis? Where's the confidence in DDP trying to push forward in this fight and saying, yeah, he's not going to take me down. He's not going to be able to take me down. And try to test that with Chimaev. Try to get him to gas out. He did say, let's sprint. But I don't know. A lot is coming off with weird energy. And look in the right picture. The picture on the right. Have you ever seen Dricus Du Plessis this tense? Ever. Seriously, in any single fight DDP's been in, he looks much more relaxed. He doesn't look nearly as tense, nearly as tight. I've never seen this level of tightness, of tension, nervous energy from DDP. I'm not gonna say lack of confidence because that is pretty disrespectful, but there's something going on. There's this insane nervous energy that's coming out of DDP that he's even mentioning, that you could start seeing in the behavior and the way he's speaking at these press conferences, at these media days, his reactions towards everything that's going on, his reactions towards Chimaev. It's weird. And also just look at Chimaev, as demeaning as it gets, staring him down, looking at him, trying to break him mentally, which I do think DDP's starting to struggle a little bit mentally regarding this matchup. I think he's starting to wilt a little bit already. I think the anxiety is probably starting to get to him. I think the nervous energy is starting to get to DDP, whereas Khamzat Chimaev is as relaxed as it gets. It's insane. And then DDP grabs the belt, holds it up, stares at Chimaev, seemingly trying to assert some dominance in this. Like, he really is trying to put together some sort of confidence build up for himself to say, hey, I'm still the champion. I'm still the guy. Even when Khamzat Chimaev said, like, Africa's never going to see the belt again, that was trash talk. That's trash talk. That's telling DDP, you're going to lose. Your country's never going to see the title again. DDP didn't respond. DDP didn't say anything. DDP, I think at one point said, like, nobody understood what he said. When the crowd reacted, cheering for Chimaev saying something, DDP immediately reacted by saying, you guys didn't hear what he said. You guys didn't understand what he said. No way you guys are cheering for that. That's insane. That's insane. There's no way DDP's reacting to that and saying things like that. It just seems like he's out of it. It seems like he's so, I mean, like, why is he so engulfed in that? Saying the crowd didn't hear Chimaev when they cheered, that's insane. He didn't talk back with his trash when he said the thing about Africa never seeing the championship again. It's not obviously a direct attack at the country. It's just more so Chimaev saying, like, hey, you're going to lose. And your country's never going to see the belt again because you can never beat me. And DDP didn't say anything. I think Khamzat mogged him throughout this entire fight week. I don't think DDP likes it at all. I don't think DDP likes the fact that everybody else is saying that he's getting bombed. And I think this is going to affect DDP in this fight. I already thought Chimaev was going to win, but I think it's going to look a lot worse than we ever thought it was going to. And then Khamzat Chimaev at the end, screaming Allahu Akbar, staring at the crowd after DDP put the championship up and staring him down. DDP immediately put the championship down, walked away, seemed a little bit like, okay, whatever. While Chimaev was as strong as it gets, standing as strong as it gets, as powerfully, motivated with his speech as it gets, screaming Allahu Akbar to the crowd, putting his finger up in the air, like this finger, not that one. And then, yeah, it just completely different confidence between these two guys. Completely different demeanor between these two guys going into this fight week. And again, we thought that DDP could never really get anything, like nobody can get under his skin. I think Khamzat Chimaev has gotten under his skin without even trying. Literally has not put in any effort to get under DDP's skin. It's insane. It's legitimately insane. Let me know what you guys think. Please subscribe to the channel. Follow MMA_DBM on TikTok. I post hopefully on YouTube as much as I can every single day. I'll try. And also on TikTok. I post like 4 to 6 TikToks every single day regarding UFC content. Help your boy grow on TikTok. Help your boy grow here on YouTube. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about DDP Chimaev. Let me know who you think is going to win. I know who's going to win. It's going to be Khamzat Chimaev. But anyways, thank you guys all for watching. I haven't gotten good at outros, have I? No, not one bit of improvement in those. We'll figure that out. Follow, subscribe, all that stuff. Like, comment, all that. Thank you guys. Appreciate you guys. See you guys tomorrow.